What's up, everybody? We're live on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Trying TikTok again. First and foremost, there are some fake pages out there. There's been a fake, fraudulent YouTube channel who are sending people over to a fake, fraudulent Telegram page, and what they'll do is slice this video where they'll cut this part off. So somewhere in the middle of everything, I'm just going to have fun with it. They won't be able to share this video because I'm going to just randomly put certain things in the middle of these videos now, just because I have to. All right, because I value my reputation in a good way. I don't talk about QFS. I don't talk about your wallet. I don't care about your wallet. In a broad sense, I care. In a intricate sense, I don't. All right. You should not do anything until the President of the United States of America puts it out there. All right? Plain and simple. It's just that plain and simple. All right, so the way you validate my pages is my link tree, linktr.ee/1776 Nation. If it's not on there, that's self-explanatory. A link tree is specifically made to where you can put all your links under one link. See how that works? All right. So, all right. Let me get the jewel, the crown jewel here, right here, ready to roll. The crown jewel. I mean, it baffles me. It baffles me that weekly, we have to pull this up. I mean, it's really just like that. If you again, I show this all the time. Put brackets around it. Now that don't mean after this one that the world's gonna crumble again and everything's gonna go back to the deep state. It will if some of you folks don't start learning some laws and orders. The three branches of government, how they operate, how they function. What are they? Who are they? What does that look like? So everything that happens between those numbers right there, this right here is January the 20th, 2017. This right here, the end of that will be January the 20th, 2029. Every freaking thing that happens between these two numbers is pre-planned. That is the operation. So some of you are still wallowing in what one of my drill sergeants in the Army used to call D-O. Now, it's pretty hilarious because we were like, that's not how you spell the actual word, what he was saying. But it don't make sense if he would have said D-O-O. It just don't have a rhyme to it like D-O. So he put an emphasis on it. So in reality, the O was him putting two O's back there. D-O. Some of you are just wallowing in D-O. Do. How can you claim to support a man who wears this signature ball cap? This is his ball cap, not mine. I didn't make the suggestion, none of that. This is his signature ball cap that he wears everywhere. How can you claim to support a man? Can you claim to love a man, but especially support a man when you don't even know what this means? And you just keep wallowing in D-O, do. You control your feelings, and you are in control. You, whoever you are watching this, you are in control of your feelings and your emotions. You are. Nobody else is. And if you're letting someone else control your emotions, you're doing that to yourself. You're doing that. That's why racism, homophobism, and all the isms out there and all the is out there, they don't exist as long as you control your feelings and your emotions. They don't. So how can you support a man and you don't even know what's on his ball cap? Now, what's the beauty of all this is my books are still selling like hotcakes, which, you know, they're the only books out there. The only. This has been in publication since December 2023, coming up on 2-year anniversary. It stemmed from my documents called the documents.info, which are still up and available, but there's timestamp because I stopped updating those January 2021. We put a few pictures up after that of aircraft flying, but other than that, they're dated for a reason. So these stem from those. So how did I know before President Trump put the dash on his ball cap that you're watching a special strategic pre-planned operation 45-47, which means continuous, which means through. If I said I'm going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah, November the 10th to the 14th, why in the hell would I spell out November the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14? We have a little thing in the United States English punctuation and grammar called a dash. So I'd say I'm going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah, November the 10th, dash 14. Can we strike up the band? I mean, people love my little colloquials, and they're not that brilliant, but it's that simple. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's that simple. Remember that movie that had Tom Cruise in it, and the guy wanted to play pro football, and he kept saying, "Show me the money." Then he said, "Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money." It's that simple. It's that simple. And President Donald John Trump, Supreme Commander, the guy puts in post all the time, he put it this week twice, ensure what? Laws and orders. This guy will ensure laws and orders. This guy will enforce laws and orders. Laws and what again? He's going to ensure what again? President Trump told you way back in 2020, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. Why do y'all, certain ones of you, make it bigger than the problem? You wanted the swamp drain. Drain that swamp. Drain that swamp. Drain that swamp. You chanted it. Did you not want it? I'm just asking a simple question here. You wanted the swamp drained. Did you not want it drained? How did you think they were going to drain the swamp? It had to be done what? Lawfully. Through what? Orders. Law is the pre-recipe in this case. Orders is the recipe in this case. Because that is the enforcement. This, it's like a dome, is the shell, and then you have this order come in and go, okay, here's what the law says, and here's what we can do in that law. Go make it happen. There could be no loopholes. Now what's happening is a lot of you just ain't cut out to be warriors. You just ain't cut out for that. You're cut out to be complainers, whiners, gripers, all that, negativity, but you're not a warrior. Because I'm going to tell you what right now. At this point, November the 9th, 2025, it's more painful for people that are operators, special operators, all forms of operators, secret military, you name it. It's more painful for everybody who's been given a position, especially externally, not internally with the military, but external, a little tiny position like I've been given, just a little tiny sliver. It's more painful for us because Americans are this slow and dumb and laggards. It's more painful back here to go, oh my God, Americans think that one mayor, you think that one mayor is the end-all, break-all. That one mayor proves how slow and laggards, and you have to use the word dumb, Americans are. To think that one mayor, just because it's New York City, you prove that you're in that percentile, the 68th percentile, who don't even know, can't even name the 3 words of the 3 branches of government. 68% of America, if you walked up on the street, said, name the 3 branches of government. Just name them. 68% of America cannot say the words, the terms. We don't even need a definition. Just say the word, just say the term, legislative, executive, judicial. So the longer you out there play the game, the longer the games are going to be played. Because you don't even know your simple civic authority. You don't know your simple civic. And you don't know your simple civic authority because you don't even know the 3 branches of government. And you wonder how it had to be played out like this. You wonder, one, it's strategic for a reason. They're making sure there's no loopholes. And as we go, if there was a loophole there, then guess what happened? The hole got plugged with what? Whatever was needed there. If it was a loophole created on purpose by the deep state, then guess what? Amended. If it wasn't created on purpose, but it was there, amended. From top to bottom. So a lot of you are just, you're wallowing doo-doo because you want to wallow in doo-doo. There are so many moving mouths out there. I hear people still, I don't know who to trust. There's so much stuff. You don't know who to trust because you're listening to drama and propaganda. It sounds this way when I say this. And I hate it, but I have to be, I'm the only one who says it. It sounds this way. It's not. Anyone who's ever met me knows what I'm about to say. It sounds braggadocious. It sounds conceited. It sounds cocky. It sounds all those words. It sounds arrogant. It sounds this way. It's perceived that way because it's me saying it. But there's absolutely no reason why my page isn't bigger than what it is. I'm the only one who can take all the laws and orders from a long period and put them in one video and break this down to what exactly is going on lawfully by the man. Under the man. Under the operation. Because I was put here strategically as well. So until we get a basis of all Americans who learn how everything functions and operates first, only then can we work on other things that are more social, not government. That are all social, definitely not military. But a lot of things social are also not government. So until we get a basic understanding and what your civil authority is and what your civil duties and your civil responsibilities are, until we get a basic of that again, and every single one of you have a basic knowledge of the 3 branches of government, and each on their own, and then each together, then it's going to look like this. And I know a lot of you don't want it that way. I know a lot of you, especially anybody who's over 40 years old, you really don't like drama, but you don't know how to escape it. So therefore you end up being a product of it and or a recipient of the trash. So guys like me are trying to show you how you divorce your feelings and your emotions, get out of that, how you get a basic foundation. And then when everybody, and until then, but when everybody gets a basic foundation on that, it's going to be like this, on these levels. Everything's being cleaned out up here. And all your leaders are being nominated on purpose. They're either businessmen and women and or veterans. That was the original continuity government plan established by Eisenhower. Business people and military. Bingo. All that's going to take place, and it is taking place. And it's going to shake out through time because you're going to have to. But if you want to escape it right now, you can. You don't need all this trash. You don't need any of this trash in your life. You got people out there that just keep stirring stuff, stirring stuff, stirring stuff. And there is a gray area there for First Amendment or not. So they can't just delete people straight out the gate because that's a gray area. Where you empower yourself is to learn how the internet works. Every app has a what? Coding system. Means it was coded. For you to be able to utilize it, it's coded. So it has trigger points. Not like libtards believe in triggers, but trigger points, meaning algorithms. The more you comment on a post, the more you like a post, the more you share a post, it becomes more visible. So quit commenting on drama and propaganda posts. That's how you dry them up. You're the ones that keep them out there growing, building. Stop commenting on it. Even if it's a negative comment, meaning like even if you're disagreeing with whatever the post is, a comment is still a comment. You're the one that keeps people like that thriving. Liking their page, subscribing, whatever you want to call it, liking their page, following their page, commenting, you're the one that keeps them going. That's how that works. The other thing is every single one of you should be insulted by your intelligence should be insulted. And all military be okay with this. I have a good feeling that every single body that I know would be okay with what I'm about to say. You should be insulted. Your intelligence should be insulted that this kind of operation had to be played on you. Now, I'm not talking to you patriots, and only you know who you are. The OGs, the real patriots on the pages. I'm talking about some of you maybe had trickled over here, you're brand new, and or the ones that come over that'll be new. Welcome, but also you should be insulted. Your intelligence should be insulted. We don't want it to drag out like this. I can go ahead and tell you right now. I know a lot of operators. I know a lot of special forces that agree. One just said it just a couple of days ago on one of the military podcasts we do. They agree with me. I mean, now, it ain't about me and them either at the end of the day. It's a team concept as a whole. But since we're the only ones really speaking up, speaking out, and showing you what's going on lawfully and know what's going on lawfully, since it's only a handful of us that are actually talking about what matters and what doesn't, your intelligence should be insulted. That Americans in the bigger percentiles are this ignorant and dumb. You should be insulted. It's literally like toddlers. This is like herding a bunch of toddlers or herding a bunch of cats. It's more painful sitting back over here knowing what we know and watching it have to be played out just like this. That's what it feels like over here. Because Americans don't even know simplicities of government. Don't even know simplicities of your civic authority. Just simplicities. It's that painful to have to sit over here and watch a bunch of Americans act like freaking toddlers. On both sides of the aisle. You Republicans, conservatives can say what you want about liberals, but a lot of Republicans and conservatives look just as atrocious from this side. You think you know more than the president. You think you know more than the generals. You think you know more than the admirals. You think you know more than special operations. You think you know more than everything. And you can't even name the three branches of government, most of you. I get messages all the time that, I mean, my team reads them, we read them, I read them. Oh, you know more than me, you know more than the president, you know more than everything. Well, why aren't you in a position? Why don't you start you a page then? Why don't you go on, get out of my inbox and get out of my comment box and start you a page? See how that fares for you. See how that works. You're going to find out quick. You're going to be right back over here. That's what's going to happen. Because it don't work like that. And so many people, you have an infatuation with the military. You don't have a true respect, a true appreciation. You have an infatuation. As long as you have your comforts and your freedom, ooh, I love the military. Oh, God bless the boys in blue, red, white, blue. And oh, and God bless the boys in green and uniform. No, you have an infatuation with it. Because a lot of people say military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military strategies, and military tactics are conspiracy theories. Yeah. I'm going to warn you one more time. Don't vote for Derek Jonhson. If you ever see my name on a ballot and it is legit me, don't vote for me. Don't vote for me. The liberals think President Trump is a fascist, is a dictator. I will deport you simply for not knowing the three branches of government. You're out of here. Gone. You're going to Tanzania or somewhere. Tasmania, somewhere. You're going to some stein in the middle of nowhere. You're going to either Afghanistan, you're going to Kazakhstan, you're going somewhere with a stand or something that you have to look over your shoulders constantly until you can name the three branches of government and you can pass a basic civic authority test. Only then can you get your ass back to the United States of America. Only then. And it better not be just memorization where we can't tell there's no passion there. It better not be legislative, executive, judicial. Oh, let me in, let me in. No, it better be like legislative, executive, judicial. Legislative writes and passes the laws. Executive enforce the laws, and judicial, they interpret the law. Boy, it better be passionate. You better want to be back in America. Don't vote for Derek Jonhson. That's going to be a new, I'm going to make a t-shirt that says, don't vote for Derek Jonhson. That's what I should put up, all right, and get called a grifter for telling you laws and orders. If you call me a grifter, you'll be deported. For selling books and t-shirts. Every country music singer has apparel. Every Democrat and Republican has a book. You would be deported in a heartbeat. All right. So why'd you yell, drain that swamp? Why'd you yell, drain that swamp? Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you're excluded because you know who you are. You're a patriot. This ain't for you. Right? This is your, like, get them. Republicans, conservatives. Why did you yell, drain that swamp? Why'd you yell that? If you don't want that, why did you yell that? And how in the heck do you think they were going to do it? On your time? The way you want to do it? Because you don't even, you can't, all of you Republicans, conservatives in that mainstream world, you can't even name the three branches of government. Therefore, you wouldn't even know where to start lawfully via laws and orders on how to drain the swamp. You wouldn't even be able to write me a one-page essay on laws and orders of how you would drain the swamp lawfully. How? It would be like this. This is what Professor Jonhson would sound like. I want you, the class, the audience, I want you to write me not a one-page essay. I want you to write me a 10-page essay on how you would drain the swamp lawfully via laws and orders using irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, all right? And I want to see a blueprint of how you would drain it lawfully with laws and orders, all right? And not fire one single shot. Not one single shot has been fired in the United States of America by the National Guard and or the reserves with the law enforcement, all right? That And then also, what would you do with Iran? What would you do with all these executive orders? First, you got to know the executive orders. You must also reference what executive order is in place with Iran, with Yemen, all right, the Congo. All right, let's talk about all these places. You have to use works cited correctly. What would you have done differently? All of you holier than thou don't know anything about the military, don't know anything about the government. What would you do? 10-page essay. So all the whining, complaining, griping, fussing, it's just falling on deaf ears because it's a pre-planned operation in the first place. That's what the dash means. I signed my contract to write this book right here. This is part 1, and obviously part 2 is a lot bigger. All right. I signed this February the 18th, 2023. February the 18th, 2023. Donald John Trump put this visual on his ball cap April the 2nd, 2023. Last I checked, I'm pretty sure that February comes before April. And last I checked, 2023 is the same calendar year. And last I checked, I signed my contract to write these books that are the only books that talk about the dash, the only books that explain the dash lawfully. Laws and orders. I'm pretty sure I signed my contract at a little place called Trump International in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is the private golf course of President Donald Trump. You know who was standing right over here? Be like right here. You know who was standing there? The man himself. Come on, people. They don't call you names for nothing. The liberals don't hate you for nothing. All the haters don't hate you for nothing. All right, so I'm going to read the definitions for you, even though I know them, but I'm going to read them for you. That way, when you get your little rear ends over on Google and you Google these words, then you can see them for yourself. Irregular warfare. Irregular warfare is a type of conflict where instead of direct military confrontation, groups use indirect and non-conventional methods to achieve their goals, often by influencing populations or eroding an adversary's will and power. It focuses on gaining advantage through methods like subversion, cyber attacks, supporting local forces rather than large-scale conventional battles. Think of it as fighting with influence and subversion rather than fighting with armies in a field. This is what we call, though, a counter-psychological operation. Because a psychological operation was put on all of you via the deep state, making you think that they were upholding laws and orders. They used the same terms. They used the words laws and orders. They used gaslighting and manipulation, though. Because you, the people, forgot knowing your basic civic authority, roles, and duties. Therefore, that's how we became, not we, me, but, and also not we, the real patriots, but you, the general public, you, the mainstream public. That's how you became part of the 68th percentile who can't even name the 3 branches of government. So therefore, if you can't name the 3 branches of government, you can't also do what? You can't confront your representative because you don't even know what your representative is supposed to be representing. Our founders started a war for taxation without representation. Now we have representation, and you the people don't even know what what your representatives are supposed to be doing for you. We the people are the government. We the people are the government. You know what I'm about to say? It's that simple. People complicate life. People complicate your personal lives. You complicate business lives. You complicate it. The cure cannot be bigger than the problem. The problem got so big because people made it big. It wasn't supposed to be. We, the people, are supposed to be the legislators. Congress represents us. The Constitution is a framework to keep them in check, not the other way around. The deep state used subversive tactics against you all these years. They made you think they were upholding the laws and the orders. They weren't. But you quit knowing the laws and the orders. Therefore, if you don't know the laws and the orders, how can you know if they're telling you the truth or not? You can't. Now, also, here's some key aspects of irregular warfare. One of them, counterinsurgency operations. You hear what I'm saying? Counter. It's all a counter. Everything we're doing right now is a counter to reverse it out. And then guerrilla warfare. Now watch this. Guerrilla warfare, if you go look up Special Operations Renaissance, go to Google, type in Special Operations Renaissance, October the 7th, 2023. What are the odds on the day they told you the Israeli war started that Special Operations Command is putting out a Renaissance publication? Same day. And guess what's at the very bottom of it? A letter that JFK had written April the 11th, 1962. About what? Guerrilla warfare. And how he thought it was important to incorporate into the United States military consistently. Not, oh, when we need it, oh, the enemy used it on us. No, consistently. Guerrilla warfare. What did President Trump tell you recently, not too long ago, about AI, artificial intelligence? No, you don't have to like it, and you don't even have to like where it's going in the future. But if we don't take control of AI and the dominance of it, then guess who will? The enemy will. And if they use it, they're always going to use it. The enemy's always going to use whatever they can against you. So if you don't, what? Learn that, practice that, be in control of that, then you can't do what? 24/7. Suppress it. Keep it at bay. It will only do what? Infiltrate. And it will grow and it will build. And then they'll take control. What did the deep state do? That's exactly what the deep state did. They saw how lazy Americans were and are all these years, and they just kept building their little empire, what they called their quote-unquote democracy. They kept building that. They did that. But you didn't know your basic civil authorities. You didn't even know the basic simple three branches of government. You don't even know terminology, glossary, index. You don't even know the word. Therefore, you can't know the definition, and therefore you can't know the what? The application of the definition. The operational portions, the enforcing portions. You can't even name on a test. You couldn't even have a test given to you and know the basic, just to identify the word and circle it or match the definition. Therefore, you have no reason to whine, complain, gripe, bitch, fuss, anything. You need to sit this one out, boo-boo. We got it. We're going to clean it out. It's being cleaned out. It's going to be back on the original surface, like the Declaration of Independence describes. But see, you don't even know that and can't appreciate that because you don't even know how our founders set up the United States of America. They set that up in a sequence. If we don't have to do any kind of operation to reset the government, great. But that's why our founders put in the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, and it says in there, becomes destructive of these ends, it is their right to throw off such government and put it back on its foundation. Well, that's your last resort before you get to an all-out civil war, is the Declaration of Independence. Look at the sequence of how our founders wrote everything. They put the Declaration, well, first they started a war. They started a war without even a military organization, meaning the establishment of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps. They started the war, kicked off the war. Then they established the military, the Army first, June the 14th, 1775. 16 days later became the first war article. So we had law of war before we even had a constitution. We had articles of war before we had a constitution. Military came first in this nation. Anybody who says otherwise are a deep state liberal and or deep state Republican. I can name some names right now, and I almost did, but I'm not going to. This is an educational video. Then came the Declaration of Independence. Then came the Articles of Confederation. Then came, the Constitution was written, drafted September the 17th, 1787. Then you had these things called the Federalist Papers in between the drafting of the Constitution and the enacting of it, meaning putting it into action. You had these Federalist Papers. And the Federalist Papers were promotional papers from three of the founders and the key author of the Constitution, three of them going around saying this is why the Constitution will be good. But see, it was separate from the Declaration. The Declaration is our command to say, hey, if all this other stuff goes awry, it gets weary, it gets off its foundation, off its basis, off its functions and operations. If someone infiltrates it and it don't look like it's supposed to right here, you go back to what? What came before it? The Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Go look up the definition of throw off on Google. Get rid of. So then you go back and you look at the population size. 2.3 million people in our foundation. Only 1.7% on average fought during the Revolutionary War. What were the other 98.3 doing? Whining, complaining, fussing, griping, hiding, not doing D-O-D-O. Not doing doo-doo. So then you got to look at the constraints. This is what the constraints was put on people. Now, before we get to that, let me go back and read the core activities of unconventional warfare. So you got the definition of irregular warfare, dummy down for dummies. All right, here is the Special Operations Command.mil core activities. Now listen to the definition of unconventional warfare. Actions to enable a resistance movement or insurgency to coerce, disrupt, or overthrow a government or occupying power. Actions to enable a resistance movement or insurgency to coerce, disrupt, or overthrow a government or occupying power. Here's where Congress duped every single one of you Americans in 1973 and 1951. Now, I have a timeline that I use on my podcast that shows you where the deep state got deeper. They used heavy manipulation and gaslighting. And the people of those generations are basically your greatest generation and the birth of the baby boomers. Who believe in what? What those generations back here believed in. Handshake, eye-to-eye communication, handshake, your word meant something. But they got duped by people who took advantage of them, who knew they were good people, but were doing all this back here. (1941) Powers Act, War Powers Act, 1941, 1942. Roosevelt told Congress if they didn't do something, that he would as Commander-in-Chief. That the Constitution was left open, that they both have power of the military. Congress only has power, though, to declare the war. But the Constitution left the presidential power very vague for a reason. Very vague. All right? So when Roosevelt told Congress, if you don't act, I will, Congress put in the War Powers Act of 41 and 42. Now, 42 was just land and naval use. All right, 41 was the key act, 1941. Now, you got to look at all of what took place from 41 to 2016. Look at 1941. Then you had Pearl Harbor, right? December the 7th, 1941. Then you move forward, all your puppet governments, 1943, 1945. Then you had the Bretton Woods system. You had the National Security Act. You had NATO established in 49. All right, you had 1950, Korean War started. You had 1951, what I always single out, which we're going to leave it out right at this moment. 1955, Vietnam started. 1961, the industrial complex speech, military industrial, by five-star general and President Eisenhower on his way out of office. You had JFK going around the Treasury, going around the Federal Reserve straight to the Treasury, January 1963. What happened 11 months later? All right. Then you had, it really went downhill, when you had Lyndon Johnson, the Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act was not for what people thought it was. All right. He called it the Nigger, the N word, the hard R, the words that black people hate, right? That's what Lyndon Johnson called that bill. That was his nickname for that bill, the N bill. Does that sound like somebody who's for your rights? Does that sound like somebody who wanted you to have more rights? I don't think so. He wouldn't be calling you your derogatory word if it was for you. All right, but 83% of blacks have voted Democrat ever since that. Control. That's called control. That's called capture and control. Divide and conquer. (1968), we did the Gold Standard Act. All right. 1968, we had this thing called the Unified Budget Act. Then 1971, the Nixon shock. That's when Congress made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it or invaluable. We call that inflation and deflation. It wasn't that long ago. 1973, that's another key date that we're going to talk about today. The two key dates, 1951, 1973, in that massive landslide of these people, Republican and Democrat. It wasn't just Democrats, Republicans. This is where you're looking atrocious. That's where they established their own system, their own checks and balances, their deep state, their quote-unquote democracy. That's why you've even heard Mitt Romney and people use the term democracy, because it was their democracy, not our republic, theirs. They established their own system. And that's why this week there was President Trump shared a post about that democracy is being destroyed. Yes, baby, exactly. Their democracy has been demolished. Their democracy has been destroyed. Their democracy. Not the United States of America Republic, their democracy. That is why we're calling it draining of the swamp. That is the draining of the swamp. That's why no Republican, no conservative, and definitely no patriot should be whining, griping, fussing, complaining, scared, fearful. All of what took place in New York City is part of the dash. Everything that took place in California is part of the dash. If you'll divorce your emotions and your feelings and listen for the key words, why did Newsom say the best is yet to come? Every bit of this is part of an act. It's a play. It's a movie. I know you get tired of hearing that, but if you would learn the dash and follow the key terms, the key words, the key phrases, the key quotes, and the laws and orders of the dash, then that's all you'll hear. And President Trump had just posted just a few days ago, the best is yet to come. That means the best is not here yet. That means the operation's not over. Well, how would you know that? Laws and orders. Executive Order 13961, which was the continuity of government. The Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, December the 7th, 2020. Why was it partially revoked on January the 19th, 2025? The last full 24-hour day of a presidency, quote-unquote Joe Biden would partially revoke it on the last full 24-hour day? So we're going to talk about that first. We're going to talk about redistricting first, right now. Then we're going to get over to the other side. I'm going to go to part 2 on reconstitution. Two key terms, redistricting and reconstitution is what we're about to talk about. All right, but first, the constraints. 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Nowhere in the Constitution, first off, does it say that the Congress is to put term limits on the president. Now, we have other phrases in the Constitution that does say things like, Congress is to do this, Congress is to do that. Nowhere in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, does it say anything about the Congress putting term limits on the president. It specifically says that the president serves 4 years in a term. It don't mention term limits. And matter of fact, the Democrats are always using the word democracy and the word constitution in the same sentence, which is an oxymoron. It can't work that way. But James Madison, the father of the Constitution, the main drafter, the main author of the whole Constitution, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton, 2 of the 3 authors of the Federalist Papers, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton thought the president should be able to serve lifetime. As long as we wanted to vote them in, if it was their whole life, and they just kept getting voted in, where the 2 terms became a topic or a piece out there was when George Washington stepped down after 2 terms. But nowhere in our, anywhere, founding anything does it say 2 terms and that Congress is supposed to do that. But just for the sake of argument, if we were ever going to have a whole ratification, and let's say that we the people, let's say that even 99% of conservatives, people who care about the world, care about our nation, and knows how it functions. Let's say that everybody was in that 99 percentile that really cared and really were truthful and said, you know what? I think that was, though, probably a fallacy back then, that they never would have dreamt that we would get here to this day, and we're okay with it. Well, why didn't Congress put term limits on themselves, but only the president? See, that's where you get them. That's where you figure out the deep state got deeper. In 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but also not on Congress. So when you hear Schumer and Pelosi and their people out there who love them, liberals love Pelosi and Schumer, when you hear them say no kings, how is it that Schumer's been in the House and Senate? He was in the House first. How's he been in Congress for 50 years? He was elected in 1975, 8 years before I was born. Pretty sure that's a king. You've been reigning since I was before I was born. and you got your people out there yelling, no kings, I'm pretty sure you're a king. Pelosi, same thing. So you got to know the constraints first. The two big constraints: 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. 1973 is the other key one. This sets up how President Trump had to do things, and how the generals, and how the admirals, and how the world leaders and the leaders, but especially our leaders, in this operation. 1973, the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973. Very key. Congress tried to limit the president on his authority of the military by having to declare a national emergency. To use the military. And then give Congress a 48-hour. In 48 hours, they had to give Congress a notification of the usage of military force. That was Congress well after 1951 showing a deeper notch on the belt, or deeper notch in the hole of their deep state control over you, the people, getting it to where they were going to set up Obama, and they were going to set up Hillary, etc., etc., etc. That's why Hillary lost her marbles when President Trump was elected. You got to go back to remember that year. You got to remember all the never, never, never. Remember all the NBC, ABC, the night shows, all this. He's never going to be president. Never, never, never. You got to remember that. That was all part of the show. That was all part of it. It wasn't a drama feed. So a lot of you you can't see the forest for the trees because you're so focused on the trees. You're not looking at the bigger beauty. You're focusing on, oh, I guarantee you in the comment box right now somewhere, there's someone saying something about Nancy Pelosi. The whole video is not even about Nancy Pelosi. I can't see the comment boxes right now, but I guarantee you somebody is. And I guarantee you someone's sitting over there saying something about Nancy Pelosi. This whole video is not about Nancy Pelosi. It's not about Chuck Schumer. See, that's the tree, and you ain't even got to the forest. You won't see the forest because you get stuck on the tree. This is all part of the dash. Every bit of it. It's part of it. You got to look at the bigger picture. I'm trying to show you the forest. Every week I show you the forest, not the trees. The forest. Right? The dash. The bigger picture. And so many of you weekly, daily, you're getting hung up on the tree because you think that President Trump's going to come out and be like, that Derek Jonhson, he's so correct. He's been corrected. And we're not even there yet, even if he were going to do that. We're not even there yet. We're not done yet. The law shows we're still in a partial continuity government. You should be learning that instead of sitting there waiting on your phone going, oh gosh, is today the day? Is this today's the big reveal? Is today going to be the big reveal? Or are they going to show us the 10 days of darkness today? That's what so many of you are doing. You're just so hung up on the tree. You can't see the forest. Learn what you're supposed to learn. Learn your basic civic authorities, roles, duties. Build a foundation. I'm here to help you build that foundation. I'm here to help you get all of the grasshoppers and all of the doo-doo and the little kid that runs by and steals your Easter egg and puts a doo-doo egg in your basket. I'm the one helping you build your basket, all right, with the things you need, the tools you need, all right, and I'm also knocking the little turds out of the way that want to mess your little basket up. Whack! I'm the mean wolf going, slapping them upside the head. You all right? All right? Whack! Get out of the woods. Leave my patriot alone. That's me. I'm helping you out on my time, my dime. Well, I don't get paid to do this. All right? I love this stuff. I love being the one going, I know this stuff really well. Get away from my patriot. Get away from my people. Let's do it. Our people, right? We're all in this together, all right? But some of us know more for a reason. Some of us were put here for a reason. And some of us knows the big bad wolf, who the real big bad wolf is. And a lot of you are just letting the big bad wolves just consume you daily. And you're just sitting there waiting. Wait, Don't. Build what you know. Build what you need to know. Learn what you're supposed to know. Learn it. Relearn it. If you knew it before, relearn it. Now's your time to shine in your town, neighborhood, community, family, friends, town, city, county, wherever you want to go. Now's your time to shine. But put credit where it's due. Don't be out there going out like you knew the whole time. Don't be one of them either. Don't be one of them if you're out there brushing off the cobwebs. Don't be one of them that all of a sudden starts shining and then acts, oh, I've been knowing for 20 years. It ain't been going on for 20 years. Not the specific laws and orders haven't. I love when patriots say out there, I've been awake for 25 years. Well, why aren't you the one in the hot seat? Why aren't you the one with the books? If you knew, how did you know? How did you know? Where are your documents at? Why don't you have documents written? Where are they? The laws and orders didn't start to 2017, so the unique laws and orders of President Donald John Trump. So how could you know? You couldn't. Same thing with me. You can't know 2018 until 2017 is complete. You can't know 2018 laws and orders until we got to 2018 and President Trump put them into place. It's a rolling operation. It's rolling. There's not going to be a day where they just stop the whole world and pull out this giant roll of script like the old days and it roll all the way down to about aisle number 2 and go, all right, we're going to start reading what we've done all in one. So when people say, oh, nothing's happening, no, nothing's happening to you because your head's so far up your rear end, you can give yourself a tonsillectomy. Sorry, you're not a part of this. Go over there and do whatever else you want to do. Leave everybody alone. Just go about your way. All right, this ain't for you. If you're saying nothing's happening, you've got one little atom and it's stretched to its max. You're like a fat hamster. All right, got to start slow because the treadmill ain't for you on day one. So Pelosi's interview. So don't get hung up on Pelosi. Pelosi's a tree. Let's paint the forest here. Pelosi's just the catalyst, just the face of one of the queens that's been in office way too long. Don't get hung up on Pelosi. Listen, this is like Simon Says. All right, so Pelosi was in an interview about this yes on 50 stuff. All right, why? Why Pelosi? Because of California, that's why. All right, Pelosi. She used the term democracy and constitution in the same sentence. They're using Schumer and Pelosi's because they've been around for ages. Every single one of you, if you could have had a magnifying glass, you could have watched their wrinkles get put on their face because they have been in office that long. They don't practice what they drill into your heads, not preach. They're not preachers. You remember when Pelosi told President Trump she was praying for him? And what did President Trump say? I don't need your prayers. They're using these people because they are the people. They are the corruption. They are the ones who need it drained. All right, so when you're out there in the comment boxes just drilling Pelosi, one, she's not seeing that. All right, she's not seeing that. That's the comment I make when I say that when you die, and if you see God face to face and he says you have finished the race, you have fought the good fight, if you do hear it, it won't be because of the comment boxes. The comment boxes that none of these people ever see. So Pelosi's the tree. Let's look at the forest. All right. She uses the terms constitution and democracy in the same sentence. That's not even, those are two separate words right here. Constitution, well, you got another constitution. What does the Constitution say? What context is she using the word constitution with? You got to know those things. Well, it's all out of context. One, because it's who coming out of the mouth? It's Pelosi. So you know it's going to be full of doo-doo in the first place. But it's all on purpose. All right? It's to be a timestamp, and it's a proclamation. And getting one of the swamp rats to say something again where it's timestamped. All right. Constitution, democracy. Well, we're still under what? We're still under Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency. That's why that's key. Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency. We're still under that. All right? That's why it's important. Let me see something here in TikTok. That's why it's important. Democracy. Let's conquer that one more time. James Madison. He's the sole author of the Constitution. He's the sole author of the Bill of Rights. So liberals are always saying, I have a First Amendment. I have a First Amendment. James Madison. He drafted it for a reason. The Anti-Federalists didn't like the Constitution originally. They wanted something different. So they had the Bill of Rights. James Madison wrote it and worded it where it wouldn't override the Constitution. It would be called an amendment to the Constitution. But James Madison drafted it. Even though the Anti-Federalists, it was their idea. They wanted more states to have power, not a federal government. You got to go read these things in history. All right, understand how they were written, why they were written, the context of it. All right, so James Madison drafted the Bill of Rights for a reason, where it would be worded correctly. And it wouldn't supersede the Constitution. It would be an amendment to the Constitution. All right. So James Madison, in the Federalist Papers, which were between, so they were from October 1787 to 1788, right before the enacting of the Constitution, which was in March of 4, 1789, which was our first inauguration date in history. The Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14. Now, I highly suggest you read all 85, and they're in my brand new book. I just put a brand new book out called The Midnight Rider Bible. It is selling like hotcakes. It's amazing. All right? But the Midnight Rider Bible, I put everything, every key core founding document in one book. And the Federalist Papers took up like 236 pages of the whole book. It's 85 of them. I highly suggest going reading that. All right, reading the Federalist Papers. But if you want to skip ahead, all right, to the homework assignment, go to number 10 and number 14. All right. Why is the Founding Father the main author of the Constitution, the main author of the Bill of Rights, and he solo wrote 26 of the 85 Federalist Papers, and he co-wrote 29 of the Federalist Papers? Why is the sole author telling you that pure democracies are dangerous? So see, anytime you hear democracy out of a Republican or a Democrat, whatever, if you hear democracy and Constitution, or even if you just hear democracy, but especially if you hear democracy and Constitution in the same sentence, that's someone who has no idea about Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. So see, when they say the word Constitution, well, I have a First Amendment, and the Constitution says this. Yeah, well, the Constitution also calls us a republic. Republican form of government. Article 4, Section 4. So see, you're dealing with a what? A dumbass, an idiot, or a what? Enemy. Or all the above. There's no other way to split that hair. There's no other way to water that down, condense it down. They're either a dummy, an idiot, a moron, or an enemy, or all the above. Then they had Pelosi say, we need to do what's best for the American people. That's also manipulation. That's more manipulation than gaslighting, because gaslighting is another kind of form of subversion to get something that you want. Manipulation is straight up manipulation. And it can be tons of variables, but this is a manipulation case because the American people voted last November, and popular vote went to President Trump and the Electoral College, which was a landslide, 312 to 226. The American people voted. The American people spoke. So if the government shutdown was real and wasn't part of an operation, which it is, But if it was real, then the American people spoke already. So they wouldn't be doing what the American people voted for. Because right now, in a normal setting, President Trump would be a normal, regular constitutional president. And he would have, what, 3 more years left. So the people did vote. So the American people. So when they make her say things like, the American people doing what the American people want, well, that's what we voted for. And it should be exactly that until January the 2029, when the new president would take over, whoever that would be, based on the election in November of 2028. Right? So that's how easy this stuff is. Now, if you don't know Derek Jonhson, Rattletrap, me, if you don't know me and you never heard me and you don't know your basic core principles of your government and military, then you wouldn't know any of this, which is the whole point. Why are you yelling, fussing, trying to debate, argue, mad, ridiculing, whatever it may be, whatever word, it's all negative. Why are you negative if you don't even know how it operates and functions on a basic level? Therefore, you can't know there's a special strategic operation going on, that laws and orders outline is going on. You don't even know the basic core, what the president's supposed to do on a normal basis, in a regular basis. So that's why you can't appreciate the dash. You can't appreciate President Trump and what he's really doing, what he's really the face of. His head's up under this hat. That's his image, name, brand, image, and likeness under this hat daily, weekly, monthly. That's what he's representing as his strategic special operation. Americans don't even know the basic of what a president's supposed to do. So see, they're doing all this on a purpose, and we're going to get to that. I'm building this up here. Then they ask her about merit. They're talking about redistricting. And the host says, so wouldn't that be cheating, though, on your side, because you can't beat President Trump? He used Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said, even Arnold said that you guys can't beat President Trump just outright. You got to redistrict to cheat to beat him. And then he asked, was there any merit behind that? She said, no, there's no merit. Said it's not based on merit. So see, here's what integrity looks like. So Texas, they're saying, oh, Texas, he's rigging Texas to have more seats for Republicans. So we got to rig California to be able to compete with Texas. It's not Texas. Texas has nothing to do with anything. There's 50 states. All right, so we're talking about redistricting, which would be congressional, would be seats, right? GOP and Democrat, right? It'd be seats for Congress. Texas has nothing to do with California. So singling out Texas also shows, one, Americans also don't know what? Your core basic functions and operations of redistricting. States redistrict every 10 years after what? The census. Every 10 years, the states redistrict. You know how many states are redistricting right now? 10 of them. So why isn't Pelosi talking about Alabama, Missouri, Florida, and the others? Why is there an emphasis on Texas? I probably know why. Oh, no, I do know why. There's a reason Texas is an emphasis. All right, it's not because it's big. It's not because Texas and California, their GDPs are super, super high. It has nothing to do with that. We're talking about elections here. Hang on the topic. Hang on the forest. Don't get hung up on the tree. Hang on the forest. We're talking about elections. We're talking about election interference. We're talking about Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency. So see, if you were going to beat somebody and they were cheating, you don't cheat to one-up them. You beat them outright. Then you prove they were cheating. You don't go do what they're doing and then turn and point the finger at them and call them cheating. No, you don't do the same thing, because that's still cheating too. That's what the host was talking about, merit. There's no merit in cheating. And she's saying that it's not a merit case at all. That, oh, President Trump's he's rigging Texas. First off, how did he win the election before they redistrict Texas? So see, that's another thing. This is how I teach you to critically and strategically think. All right, if they're yelling that President Trump is re-rigging Texas to cheat, well, I thought President Trump was done after this term, first off. Ooh, I thought he was in his last term. I thought a president can only serve 2 terms, according to the morons. All right, so if he's rigging and redistricting Texas, and he's in his last term, then how's it going to benefit him? Outside of the fact that redistricting happens every 10 years after the census, let's go with what's making Republicans mad, upset, fearful, all the words. See, hung up on the trees, not listening and seeing the forest. So if President Trump's rigging Texas to benefit him, how's that going to benefit him? And why would he need Texas when he already landslided before the redistricting? This is the stuff that can help you out there if you'll listen. It's that simple. If she's saying, she's not real, so don't hang up on that, but just listen to the audio. She's saying that President Trump is rigging Texas, but he landslided before the redistricting. Has nothing to do with that. That's where you got to know what redistricting is. That's why you also have to know the census. That's also, you also know election interference, Executive Order 13848. So see, the forest for the trees. Election interference, Executive Order 13848 was signed September the 12th, 2018. Dang, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, the executive order and a national emergency was declared in President Trump's first term. President Trump told you in 2020 in the quote-unquote debate with the quote-unquote Joe Biden, we have it all, we've caught them all. See, what President Trump's also exposing along the way is a lot of people who call themselves MAGA really ain't. You're not. You're all mouth. You're no faith. You're all air. You're an oxygen occupier. You're not a true faithful servant. The Bible verse where it says you're a true faithful servant and that your race has been finished. You're not. You're just all MAGA, no MAGA laws and orders. You know nothing about the country, the government, the military, the man you claim to support. Nothing. Because the quotes he said, follow the money, the best is yet to come. We have it all, we've caught them all. They're just words. Because you say what? Oh, until we see someone arrested, nothing changes. Because it's all on your time. It's all on what you want. It's all on your time. The hell with cleaning out the system. The hell with cleaning out the corruption. The hell with that. That's just supposed to be an automatic. Yep, do it, get it done, set it straight, get the laws right. The hell with you knowing your local representatives. The hell with you knowing your state legislation. The hell with all that. You just want to see an arrest. And then you still do not do what? You still don't know anything about legislation. You still don't know anything about the executive branch. You still don't know anything about the judicial branch, which means you're putting the faith and the trust in the people up here just simply because they tickle your fancy. Just because they say all the right things you want them to hear. You still don't have what you're supposed to have to be able to hold anybody accountable. You just think that because they say the right things, they're doing the right things. That's what you're doing when you don't know your simple laws, orders, legislation, executive branch, judicial branch. Because it happens on the state level as well. It's not just federal. It's even more important to know your local and state than it is your federal. Because then you would understand how delegates are chosen. then you would understand how everything works its way up. It's supposed to work from the bottom up, not the top down. And when you take that attitude, you're showing the attitude that you believe in a top down when it's supposed to be the polar opposite. And you're supposed to want to appreciate and know how it's cleaned out. Had to be done lawfully with no loopholes. It had to be done this way. They're plugging the holes as they go. All right? So it's this mentality. When we talk about irregular warfare, which is way up here, that's why you start in a sequence in these podcasts. You start up here. Irregular warfare. Unconventional warfare. All right? Then you actually put the enforcements in place. Right? The actions, the missions, the battles of that. All right? So that's what you've been witnessing. This whole thing. Like a broken record. The whole thing is in a sequence. It's in a chronological order. Every law, every order, and it's a chronological sequence. It had to be done this way. And it had to be done to where it was operational like this. Now, there's multiple ones going on at the same time, but it had to be done this way. They had to use key people. They had to use people. I've told you from day one, don't focus on the names, the tree. Don't focus on that. Focus on the forest. Look at the bigger picture. But until you know the laws and the orders, but strategic, special laws and orders that outline a continuity of government and your military occupation that President Trump has validated over and over and over and over again. He's validated. President Trump and the media since January the 20th, 2017 have used the terms occupied territory, which he calls occupied country, same thing, occupied country, puppet government, white flag of surrender, and capitulation. They have been using those terms religiously with President Trump, media, on articles, and also little reporters. All those terms are not government terms. For the umpteenth time, listen to me say, those terms are not government terms. They are law of war manual. President Trump just put out an article. He just put out a post just this week. He said, I don't need law. I don't need the law for what's taking place with Venezuela. Meaning like a declaration of war. He said, I don't need a war declaration for what's going on with Venezuela. Why? You know why he doesn't? Why doesn't he? It's international, right? But guess what? Guess what is there? Executive Order 13692. Well, who is that? That'd be Barack Hussein Obama. He has an executive order with a national emergency with Venezuela way back in 2015. So there's one of those executive orders that President Trump is also dealing with when he says, I've ended 8 wars in 8 months. Well, this isn't technically a war because it's drug trafficking. It's an operation, but it's not a war. All right? But even if you want to split a hair here, I can split the hair. December the 20th, 2019, what is in the War Powers Resolution Act? In that article that President Trump shared, it says that lawyers say, oh, needs a War Powers Resolution entry. Well, guess what's in December 20th, 2019? The entry. Guess who had it? A Democrat-controlled House of Representatives under President Trump and a Republican Senate put that section in there. Bipartisan. A bipartisan Democrat-controlled House put up the NDAA of 2020, and that section 1550 that I talk about all the time is a temporary entry in the War Powers Resolution Act. You know why it says it's a temporary? Because it's not for future presidents. The temporary shows you this is a strategic operation. The codification says under section 1550 in the War Powers Resolution Act, says codification, says this is not a part of the War Powers Resolution Act. It's recorded in there for what? Operational sake. What are the operations? All these vessels being blown up in Venezuela. Well, where's the law at, though? Where's the order? The order actually is 13692 from Obama. President Trump's just finishing it. That was an executive order with a national emergency. They were going to drag out 40 and 50 years like the Iranian executive order. We still have an executive order in place from 1979, before I was born, with Iran. Now, President Trump just responded with it, and there will be a termination at some point in the future of that, but it won't be terminated until there's an agreement. That's all been worked on. This is why you got to understand executive orders. Executive orders are a directive by the president to enforce the law. This is the enforcement, though, the executive order. If you're over 50 years old, all right, any of you listening, if you're over 50, no, you haven't seen executive orders fulfilled until President Trump got there. Every bit of the swamp drug them out. They kept dragging them out. That was their democracy. President Trump's terminating them and responding to them left and right. He's enforcing them left and right. That's the difference. That is your strategic operation versus the days of old, the past. That's why he says, I've ended 8 wars in 8 months. Those were all in executive orders. Those were all of the swamp. He's answering those. All right? That's why he says the best is yet to come. We're not there yet. But he just also validated Derek Jonhson again without saying Derek Jonhson. Me. Rattletrap 1776, my other handle, right? My birth name and my handle name, right? Well, my username, whatever you want to call it, right? So, exile. There's another one of those terms you have not heard in government since the 40s. Exile. Exile. Government and exile. Guess what that is? It's unconventional warfare. Ooh, unconventional warfare. What was the definition of unconventional warfare? To coerce, disrupt, or overthrow what? The government. And President Trump's using the term exile just a month ago with the Turkish president. He remained my friend while I was in exile. While I was in exile, he said the word exile 3 times. He can't validate me anymore. But we're still in operation. Therefore, when you out there, you hear people saying, well, he hasn't shared Derek Johnson's books. He hasn't promoted this. We're still in operation. We're still in the operation. The laws show we're still in the operation. Laws and orders. And he just posted this week 2 posts about laws and orders and put it in all caps. Those of you younger generations, you know what the difference is using regular words and then put something in all caps. You know what that means. So they set up this shell, right? They set up this operation. The military occupation is kind of like a globe. All right, that's kind of like the parameter. It is the parameter, but it sets this shell around everything. All right, the operations inside the military occupation is still real. All right, on the military side of things, not the Joe Biden puppet government, not any of that. All right, but what President Trump was doing, all right, in the first term, then they pull him back lawfully. See, they used a irregular, unconventional warfare tactic, the puppet government exile, to pull President Trump back. That way, instead of doing 8 years straight out the gate, the 2 terms straight out the gate, they did what? A term, pulled him back, irregular, unconventional warfare, continuity government in exile, used the puppet government to make people, they made all of you think that Joe Biden was real. All right, he wasn't. Wasn't none of that real. All right. Military had the parameter. Military was doing what they were doing. The child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, all the unconventional warfare, all of your underground warfare that you've seen me post about. Can't cover this all in one video. If I did, it'd be 4 hours, 10 hours long. But, all right, they did all that. They pulled President Trump back. And then they put him back in right now. So you get 12 years to do what would have taken 8. Then if they ratify the Constitution anyway, which it shouldn't need ratification because 1951 was a violation of the Constitution. It shouldn't even need ratification. But they're doing everything by the law. The constraints that Congress put on presidents in 1973. President Donald John Trump, they took the same blueprint, said, okay, you constrained us here, but this is how we're going to do it. Military came first, military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military strategies, military tactics. Joint Publication 3-57, yes, the military can most certainly work directly and indirectly with law enforcement. You probably should read up on military. All of you holier-than-thous out there who don't know jack diddly doo-doo about military and or government, yes, we most certainly can. Yes, the National Guard can. Yes, the reserve components can. Yes, the active duty can. And if you don't like it, you'll get over it. And if you don't want to get over it, you'll get a butt end of a weapon put right upside your freaking head. So come out there, like President Trump said, and spit on the National Guard. Come on out. We welcome you out. We want peace, but we'll bring you war if that's what you want. Spit on the police. Spit on ICE. Go ahead and find out. F-A-F-O. That's what you're going to get. And all of you others out there who ain't willing to do that, then you're just proving exactly what you are. You're a puss. That's all you are, is a puss. It's time to bring back real words that mean something again. You're nothing but a puss. You're a sissy. All right? You will get over it. Because the good guys have your best interest. We have your best interest. You will get over it. You're going to get over it, and you will get over it. Both. All right? It's all been done for your good health, your good freedom, everything. Whatever you want to name. It's all been good for you. All because you're ignorant, lazy, and or both, most of the people out there. You don't know what you're supposed to know. It had to be done this way. Bunch of toddlers finally getting some discipline because we let you yell and cry way too long. And you finally getting slapped on the hand or knocked upside the head, depending on what kind of toddler you are. And you're finally getting it. And you don't like it, so you're whining, complaining, griping, fussing. But you will get over it. They built a wall. They made all these key names and people. I've told every one of you patriots, I said, stop using names. You don't know who's good, playing a bad role, and you don't know who's bad, playing a good role. You don't know that. Let it play out. Even, it's like one of the colonels said this past week, and I'm trying to think Lieutenant Colonel Bosey. All right, I put credit where it's due. I don't take people's stuff and make it look like mine, like most people do out there. That's another thing. People don't put credit where it's due. Everybody acts like they knew all this. Bunch of civilians out there taking everything that all of us military are doing and making it look like they knew and there's some kind of insider. That's also BS as well. All right, that's bullcrap. All right, none of these people ever served, had no intention to serve. Nothing, and now they want to act like there's some insider out there. That's a disgrace and a mockery to the United States military. So Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, we were talking this past week about that. We were talking about these things, all right? And we were talking about all of the military. But, again, what's taking place? The military. It wasn't a military coup. It's not a coup. The liberals think it's a coup, but it's not a coup. It's a military operation. It's a military strategy. It's a military tactic. All right? So, I'm trying to think of the quote that Lieutenant Colonel Bosey said specifically. I can't think of it specifically, so I don't want to misquote here. But, let me think if I can think what he said specifically. Can't think of it. I'll come back to that thought. So the funnel, all right, all the military and this operation and these key names, central casting, there's another phrase that President Trump uses that people seem to forget. Every single day you need to have these core words that just are always with you. Central casting, one, like Pelosi, Schumer, Jack Smith, Newsom, all of them. Letitia James, they're all central casting. Every aspect of it. Pritzker, all of them. They're all central casting. All right, so you always got to keep these key terms in there. So the funnel, what I call the funnel, military and this strategic plan funneled all these people down. Now, not in real time, but for the people out there that thinks this is all real time, this is how they'd be viewing it. For the real people, the average Americans who've never heard strategies and tactics and everything, this is what it would look like. They funneled all these people, right? And there's names that are bigger names than others, and they're going to say more than others, and they're funneling them, right? And that's why President Trump says all roads lead to Obama. So they're funneling them, All right, they're going to come to this wall one day when they can't go any further. All of their money runs out, which has already ran out, but all of their words run out, all of their tactics run out to the average people. And then they have to do what? A little thing called what? White flag and surrender. And they have to tell on themselves. So instead of President Trump and all the good guys and gals telling on them and doing what? Pointing them out and saying, you did this, you did that, and you did this, and you did that. They've funneled them to where they're going to have to say what they did. White flag of surrender. So naturally, some of the lower level ones have already fallen off, and they've done what? Jeb Bush praised President Trump for his handling of Iran. Bill Clinton praised President Trump. Hillary praised President Trump for his handling of the hostages in Israel. None of you are seeing that. Nothing's happening. You're not seeing that? All right, so all these things is a funnel. The white flag of surrender. I've said it from day one. Liberals won't have any heroes left. They won't have any heroes left. You have Newsom saying the best is yet to come in 2026. Newsom. Now, forget what President Trump says about him. That is accurate to a degree, because you don't know who is good and who's bad. You don't know who's playing a role and who isn't. So wait till that comes out. Like I told someone this week in a comment box, you don't know if Newsom's good or bad. You don't know that. You only know what you think you know because you've been told to think that. But until you read laws and orders of strategic and special operations, irregular, unconventional warfare, and know what you can know, and know what you're supposed to know, you'd have a little bit different foundation. And your foundation would be shut up and listen, shut up and wait. That's what your foundation would actually be. Then you just might find out that someone you thought was bad might be playing a bad role, but they're actually a good person. You don't know that yet. Now, I'm not here to say who is and who ain't. I'm not sitting here telling you it is or isn't Newsom. It is or isn't someone like that. Not saying that. But what you are watching is a movie. Because I'm 6'5", right at it. I'm a hair off from being 6'5". When you look at me and the President Trump in the photos, we're accurate. All right? I'm about to post a photo when I get done with this podcast of the mayor of Palestine, Ohio, from 2023. All right? And you'll see, I do this daily. I show you the heights of people. All right? President Trump's 6'3". I'm supposed to be slightly taller than him. All right? Now, I don't obviously go off with my hat off around anywhere. All right? But you have to take into consideration, all right, there's my top of my head, right? So right in here, my head's about right in here, top of my head. So when you look at me and President Trump side by side, now my other hat, my gray hat, my head comes about right here because it's so tight, all right? But then you put the top of my head up next to President Trump's, his head should be about right in here, 2 inches. Accurate. Go look at our photos. Accurate. And you look at the president that they show you on TV. Not the same guy. This has been in plans for a long time. You don't have to believe that. Whatever. But because you don't want to believe that, you're only hurting yourself. To think that they put the body double at the golf course and play golf all day? Dang, sign me up. Sign me up to play golf all day? And I know President Trump don't drink, so I'd be fired pretty quick, but I'd be over there in the bar of Trump International getting me a mimosa. All right? They'd be like looking at him like, sir, you don't drink? What are you doing drinking? I'd be having a little pinky up like they teach you to do in the movie Titanic. I'd put that little pinky up, get me a little, I'd be sipping a mimosa. They'd be looking at, oh, President Trump must be having a day today because he started drinking today. I'd be that little double in that big old suit. Oh, yeah. I'll take another one of them. Sir, that's your 17th one. Just one more won't hurt. Body double. Get to play golf all day. If you think that, you don't need deported. You just need to be in a nursing home. You need to be fed ice cream and pudding. And you need to have Scrabble. as your game, all right, that you play. That should be your pastime. Scrabble, and you may get to watch The Price is Right at 10 a.m. every morning, all right, Central Standard Time. That's where your mind is. If you think that the body double gets to play golf all day, but the real president still goes out to get shot at, what's the point of having a double? Please tell me what's the point of having a body double if the real president still has to go out and get shot at and get on aircrafts and fly around and have any kind of malfunction in the engine or whatever it may be. Don't worry, your body double's back there playing golf and he's ready to step in if you go down. They set a parameter. They set this play field up, right? All right, and they put all these actors and actresses in. The real portions is a drain another swamp. The real portion is resetting the Constitution, resetting the Declaration, resetting the executive branch, resetting the judicial branch, resetting the legislative branch, cleaning out all these things, all these loopholes. That's the real parts. All right, getting in people who want to be there for the right reasons, who have the passion, who want to be there for the right reasons, who have the experience and the knowledge and the passion, as President Trump, all these nominations you're seeing, they're either businessmen and women and or military. All right, that was a key component of the original continuity government and the original plan of how you get through a disaster period on the back end of it to reset everything on a good solid foundation. All right, the deep state used all these tactics against everybody, COVID and all these other things. Boom. All right, they were all used as a disaster. All right, they were all retaliations of the deep state. And when you learn that, then you're going to see the bigger picture. And until then, you're just going to be hung up on the tree, the tree, the tree. You won't be able to see the forest because you're hung up on the tree, the emotions, the feelings. You're getting all wrapped up in Pelosi, her name, and who she was. You're not looking at what they're making her say and the bigger picture of what she's saying. You're looking at the emotions and the feelings. That's what you're getting caught up on. So, all right, part 2 of this. All right, so all that was your redistricting. That one little word came with all that. Redistricting. That one little word did all that. And redistricting takes place every 10 years. So the Texas part is the Executive Order 13848. So this all ties in now. I'm going to tie these two in. Now, you would think that reconstitution and redistricting sound like two completely different things. Well, they are by context, but they're not by operational. Now, watch how these tie in. You got to look at the timeline. So, Executive Order 13848 is the election interference executive order with a national emergency, signed September 12, 2018. Why would, quote unquote, Joe? Now, this is where I struggle in another way. How do you people? Let me back up here and have this come to Jesus, like this. How is it that you can't do simple math? I'm talking about the whiners, complainers, gripers, moaners, and the Republicans over there. How is it that an executive order is a conspiracy theory, number one? How is it that laws and orders are conspiracy theories? How is it that military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military strategies, military tactics are conspiracy theories? First off, please explain that to me. All right, then second, please explain why President Trump and the media have only used terms from the Law of War Manual. They're not government. Law of War Manual, puppet government, and occupied territory are in the same chapter, which is military occupation, which validates the military occupation being ran on our own nation, the continuity of government, which be continuing the actions of the government where it can, and judicial branches where it can, the rest being military. Explain that to me, all right? And then explain to me why it's so hard to comprehend that if Joe Biden was president, then Joe Biden would have had the same power and authority as every other president. And outside of a real insurrection on our nation, not one tiny little Capitol building like people thought wasn't. All right, it wasn't even a real insurrection. It was all set up and rigged. That as well. But outside of a real insurrection on our nation, There's not a thing in the world you would have done as a civilian if, quote unquote, Joe was a real president with the same power and authority. If Joe Biden was a real president, and all of you nincompoops out there who thought that, quote unquote, Obama was pulling the strings in the background, if Obama was pulling the strings in the background, why did they continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies put into place by Donald John Trump, the man they call a dictator, a king, a fascist, a Nazi, a threat? Why would they continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies just to hand back to him January the 20th, 2025 with a big giant red bow on it, say here's 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that are deporting, they're still deporting illegal migrants, all right? They're still taking back the Panama Canal. They're still enforcing DOGE. They're still going to terminate mainstream media contracts. They're still doing all these things. But by the way, we're going to call you a dictator, a king, a Nazi, a communist, a fascist, a threat. We're going to call you all these things, right? But here's your 8 executive orders back with your 8 national emergencies. That each national emergency carries 120 statutory powers to the president, emergency powers, and it also carries a 1-year and 2-year automatic termination, depending on how you read the Constitution. Some say 1 year, some say 2. Doesn't matter. It has an automatic termination on it. Which means that in that period, it automatically terminates at the end of it. To continue a national emergency requires a pen, paper, president. Why did Joe and the Hoettes, and also Obama, for people who think Osama, yo mama, Obama was back here pulling the strings, why did they continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that are doing all those things, but especially election interference? Explain that. That one concept alone, absolutely 100% proof, validates the occupation, the operation. Why did they continue the very executive order that will damn his whole quote-unquote administration for the people who thinks that Joe Biden was real? When you see President Trump write about the auto pen, he has to play dumb to y'all because y'all are dumb. The lot of you. Not you patriots, but the people who are seeing this video, who are still in your little feeling world, in your emotions world. He has to play dumb because y'all are dumb. You can't even understand a simple concept. Why would, quote unquote, Joe, if he was a real president, he would have had the same authority and power as every other president? He did not terminate one single Title 10 or Title 32 order, military order by President Trump. The Texas border, Proclamation 9844, February 2019. Why wasn't it terminated? If the border is all hogwash and BS, and President Trump's military operations is hogwash and BS, then why did quote-unquote Joe leave Proclamation 9844 in place? Why not terminate it? Title 32, federal call up by the National Guard. Title 32, the National Guard were at the 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024 polls. Did you not hear what I just said? 2022 and 2024 wasn't quote-unquote Joe the president to all the average Americans and dum-dums out there? So why did Joe continue a Title 32 ordered federal National Guard call-up by President Donald John Trump that put the troops out there on duty for the election polls? The only reason why National Guard would be at the elections would be to collect real data, because we work with analog systems, not digital. That's the only reason why the National Guard would be at the polls, and the National Guard websites tell you this. These things absolutely 100%, not even a 99.9, they 100% prove the occupation and operation whether you even know the laws and orders or not. Just knowing that simple setup. If Joe was president, he'd have the same authority and power as every other president. Why didn't they terminate every single military order, especially by President Trump, put into place from 2017 to 2021? Why? 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. That's 120 statutory powers per national emergency. So when they say you can't use the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, how can he not? That's an emergency power. And there's 24 executive orders with national emergencies open since 1979 to 2016. Which means every one of those executive orders with the national emergency has what? 120 statutory powers. They're the same powers, but it means if you terminate one and there's 23 left, and there's still the same powers open. This is how simple this is. This is how simple it is. So Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency for election interference is the one that put the troops at the polls. They're only there to collect data. It's that simple. Election interference. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue that? So here's how redistricting and reconstitution tie in. This is how they tie in. Remember the President Trump saying he didn't need a war declaration in the War Powers Resolution Act? Well, December the 20th, 2019, there is an entry in the War Powers Resolution Act. Regular and irregular forces. Irregular, there's your irregular warfare. There's your unconventional warfare. There's your irregular warfare, unconventional warfare tactics. There it is. December the 20th, 2019, still open. Executive Order 13912 still open. Executive Order 13919 still open. April the 1st, 2020, the operations on Venezuela launched April the 1st, 2020. Executive Order 13773 still open. Not revoked, not rescinded, none of these. Your Venezuela operation was launched April the 1st, 2020. Executive Order 13919, April the 30th, 2020. All in the first 180 days clause of your Section 1550. That's just the first 180 days. That's not the every 180 days after, like it says in the clause. That's just your first 180 days. That's your Western Hemisphere. President Trump's always putting up posts about the Western Hemisphere. Go back and look at Executive Order 13919. What's it say about the Western Hemisphere? That's also the Monroe Doctrine, 1823. That's why President Trump puts pictures up every so often of the Monroe Doctrine. Imagine that. Second 180 days. This is where they tie in. The second 180 days. December the 7th, 2020. Invocation of continuity of operations. Your continuity of government. December the 7th, 2020. Executive Order 13961. 3 days later, Executive Order 13963. The most recent order of succession within the Department of War, which back then was called the Department of Defense. The most recent order of succession to this date is still back there in that executive order 5 years ago. In our DODIs and DODDs, which are Department of Defense, still called by that because they hadn't changed those yet, but Department of Defense instruction manuals and Department of Defense directives, guess what's still listed in those? Executive Order 13963 from December the 10th, 2020. All of the order of successions in our current to-date Department of Defense instructions and Department of Defense directives still quote that order of succession from 2020. So if, quote-unquote, Joe Biden would have died, guess who the order of succession is still signed by? President Trump. That's how the average person is supposed to look at that. But, quote-unquote, Joe wasn't president. The laws and orders also show this. Executive Order 13848, September the 12th, 2018. That's election interference. Now let's bring in reconstitution. So here's where December the 14th ties in and Texas ties in. President Trump filed through the state of Texas via the United States Supreme Court versus 7 battleground states. Anybody who knows anything about Smartmatic and Dominion systems and the swing states, as they call them, that is the election interference. That's the election rigging, was the swing states. That's your election. That's where all elections were rigged, were the swing states, and they changed every year. Every year, swing states were different, except for 2020 and 2024. The same 7 swing states of 2020 were the same 7 swing states of 2024. That President Trump filed via the United States Supreme Court through the state of Texas, a state in which he's never lived in. Why would President Trump file through a state of which he's never lived in? Why not just state of Florida, state of New Jersey, state of New York? Why not file through a state of your residency? I mean, it's still an operation. It's still strategic and special via laws and orders, whether people even know those or not. It's still special operations strategic. So why not file via a state that you live in versus a state you never lived in, the state of Texas? December the 14th, 2020. In that same 200, the second 180 days, the second. So 200 and whatever. Why? Did President Trump not post last year this time? He posted 7 states that he landslided, and they were those 7 swing states that he filed against December the 14th, 2020. And you, ye of little faith, think nothing is happening? Ye of little faith. You don't deserve anything. You don't deserve this nation. You don't deserve the military. You don't deserve your freedom. And you don't deserve President Donald John Trump's face. He's just a name, face, brand, image who was willing to take all the ridicule, the mockery, the hatred, and everything. He's not the one actually hands on the ground, boots on the ground, making it happen. He's the one just taking the heat, the hatred, the mockery, the ridicule, etc. Ye of no faith, ye of little faith, ye who need your asses deported. Every one of you who say nothing's happening, you need your asses deported. You need to be in a holding pen somewhere where you just have food, water, shelter until you can pass a test and show your appreciation for the military and also the good portion of the government, which should still be small and is going to be small. Until you have an appreciation for Donald John Trump and what his face, name, brand, image did and what the military is actually doing, you should be deported. Reconstitution. So you got to look at the timeline. December the 14th, 2020. Now move to January the 1st. In reality, there's what, 31 days in December, so that would be 17 days till December the 31st from the 14th. It'd be 18 days later. There was a publication put out by FEMA, all right, way back January the 17th, 2017, and June 13th, 2017, FEMA and Department of Homeland Security put out new publications for what? Continuity of government. 3 days before President Trump took office, the first time ever, when he said we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people, ye of little faith, who yelled drain the swamp, but don't even know what to do with the power that's being given back to you. And then 5.5 months into his first presidency, Federal Continuity Directive 2 was put out, which would be the implementation phases of it. Part 1 is just your shell and your general outline. Part 2 is your implementation. And there's been publications put under those that all tie into those. They're all different pieces and components of it. Well, this is what one did. January the 1st, 2021, Reconstitution of the Executive Branch was put out. And it specifically said in there that when Congress and their enumerated powers, when it says when Washington, D.C. cannot be established as the seat of government, meaning the capital, Congress and their enumerated powers will reestablish a new seat of government. If you go look over at the government services fiscal year 2026 budget analysis, they've got an allocation in there for 2026. $10 million. Which, when broken down, can be up to $250 million projects. Why does President Trump say that Washington, D.C. was a crime capital of the United States? Washington, D.C., not Chicago, not cities that we absolutely know had horrific street crime. He said Washington, D.C. was a crime capital. Why is he putting an emphasis on Washington, D.C.? See, to the average American out there, Washington, D.C., they think it's a city. No, it's a federal territory. But now he's calling it a city. So what if it just becomes a city again, and all of the Capitol building and the White House and all that just becomes a memorial building? What if it becomes the presidential library for President Trump? What if he saves that money and doesn't build one and makes that his presidential library? What if he just makes it another place that, you know, it's just historical for people to visit? What if the Capitol is moved? D.C. wasn't our first capital. People would get over it. Starting anew on a new slate sometimes don't hurt things in life. So you'll get over it. If you don't like it, guess what? You'll get over it. All right? So, President Trump. Do you know what the definition of reconstitution is, by the way? Let's just do that. Reconstitution, the process of restoring government functions after a disaster or more permanent reorganization of its structure, typically at the start of a new structure. The first is a continuity of operations plan, which allows the executive branch to resume essential services after a catastrophic event by activating backup facilities and procedures. Bingo. January 1st, 2021 would have been after what? What y'all thought, which was the worst year in U.S. history, because you had to sit at home, twiddle your thumbs. You were told to sit at home. You did what you were told. See how that works? Boy, you will do what you're told when it comes to that. But you won't listen to someone who actually knows the laws and the orders that outline that, well, actually you failed the test back then. You actually failed pretty miserably. You didn't even listen to the president who said use hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, which is a Z-Pack. All right, you didn't listen to that. No, hell no. You listened to your doctor. You listened to what you wanted to hear. You didn't listen to the president. That's why people to this day who says, oh, the president endorsed the vaccine. No, he did not. Go back and listen to all the March and April 2020 press conferences. Hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, azithromycin if your heart could take the Z-Pack. Ye of no ears, ye of no listening. You heard what you wanted to hear, and it wasn't from him. You listened to your doctor. You listen to them doctors making that money from whom? Big Farm. That's what you listen to. Ye of no faith, ye of no ears, ye of no brain, ye of no knowledge. Ye of no knowledge. You heard what you wanted to hear. That's your problem out there. All right, so why was President Trump in Ohio in 2023? Why was President Trump at this place of disaster for this train derailment? Do you not know that train derailments are specifically listed in the continuity government books? Did you not know that? Probably not. What was President Trump doing in North Carolina in 2024 during the quote-unquote hurricane? What was that for? What was President Trump doing at the Texas border in 2024? What was President Trump doing meeting with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April 2024 to December 2024? Do you not know that 3 of those were in the year of 2024? Do you know what that would also be? A breach of national security. Because if Joe was a sitting president, then he was a sitting president with power and authority. And you would have had a former president coming in and trying to coerce you, the people who love him, support him, worship him. He would be coming in, interfering with a sitting president. If that was real time. I know it wasn't, but this is for the average folks out there. All right? That's what that would have been. It would also have been election interference. Because it was the year of what? 2024, the election year. So 3 of those were visual to you, the public. They showed you all these things in the year 2024. They were all visual to you. But 2024 has a little bit more of a weight and a pull when you know the laws and the orders versus 2023 because it wasn't the election year. So if you go by laws and orders, rules, procedures, etiquette, protocol, standards, integrity though more specifically, then you wouldn't have wanted President Donald John Trump as a quote-unquote former to the average person to be in a situation that would paint him to be a what? A liar, a hypocrite, a bigot, and no integrity. Because that's what all those could do if it was a real situation. But it wasn't a real situation. All right? It wasn't. The laws and orders show this. Therefore, you got to know the what? The laws and orders. So when you look at the timeline, you look at the War Powers Resolution Act, which holds all your answers, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. When you look at that, first 180 days, all the executive orders and what they did. Second 180 days, then you get to your what? Your setup moving into your what? Reconstitution of the executive branch. So 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. That's why all these unique laws and orders were put into place. That's your unique laws and orders. The irregular and regular military. Irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, irregular. There's where that was put in the clause under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. The entry's already there. President Trump's just saying he don't need to have a war declaration, meaning Congress declare a war. The operation with Venezuela is already being covered via the entry of the Section 1550 from the NDAA of 2020. Then you had your December the 7th, invocation of continuity government. Then you had your December the 10th, the last order of succession within the Department of War by President Trump. Then you had December the 14th, President Trump filing via the 7 swing states, which ended up being the same 7 swing states of 2024, just last November. Now, January the 1st, Reconstitution. Now you know the definition of Reconstitution. Now you know that January the 6th was a setup. All that was rigged. That was a setup. The National Guard moving into D.C. All right. President Trump is the only person who could put them there. Nancy Pelosi's just your tree, not the forest. When he says Nancy turned down the National Guard, Nancy would have had nothing to do with the National Guard. That was all the distraction piece to you, the people who don't know jack diddly doo-doo about simple. You don't know simple laws and orders. Then January the 20th, 2021. They gave you a visual that if you knew your simplicities of government and military, they gave you a visual that what you're about to witness from 2021 to 2025 is not real. It's a puppet government, which is a law war manual term, which is President Trump has validated multiple times with the occupied territory. Guess what's in the same chapter with occupied territory? Puppet government. Guess what chapter they're in? Military occupation. They showed you, quote unquote, Joe Biden have 3 cannons at Arlington. And then this year, make that an outlier. See, way back 2023 and 2024 and 2022 and all those time periods, people were all, Derek Jonhson don't know what he's talking about. Guess what? Now that one date in history is an outlier. This year, they put the wreath laying ceremony on January the 19th, 2025. Not after the swearing in. They put the wreath laying ceremony on the 19th, which makes it an outlier. They did not show the cannons at Arlington. No cannons were shown at Arlington this year. The only cannons ever shown at Arlington on January the 20th, inauguration date, was quote-unquote Joe's. They were moving around. They were not performing anything. There wasn't a commissioned officer present, which is a violation of Army Regulation 600-25 2-3 cannon salutes. All right. It wasn't the official presidential salute, Battery the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. They were with President Trump at Joint Base Andrews. That was your inauguration service. 4 cannons, 21 rounds fired is a 21-gun salute by definition. 3 cannons and however many rounds fired doesn't matter. 3 cannons is not a 21-gun salute. They tell you this on ArlingtonNationalCemetery.mil. The 21-gun salute is not to be confused with the 3-volley salute. The 3-volley salute seen or heard at Arlington is a funeral. It was a puppet government, which is an unconventional warfare tactic. My grandfather served during the most popular unconventional warfares. Puppet governments. 1943 to 45. If history is not written correctly, without emotions and feelings, but written as it's supposed to be, the same thing journalists are supposed to do, then it's going to be misconstrued. It's going to be told the wrong way. Thank God I listened to my grandfather. Thank God I'm not someone who colorizes things to persuade you, coerce you. It's not my job to persuade you or coerce you, by the way. There's a law about that as well. It's not my job to persuade you. It's not my job to say vote for President Trump because I voted for him. No. I'm showing you the laws, the orders that back the Constitution, that support our Constitution, that support our foundation, that support our origin, that support our Declaration, that support our Federalist Papers. I show you those. Once you know those, then you should want to vote for the candidate that replicates those. How do you know that they're going to be that? Well, they're going to be that by actions, right? You, like President Trump said in 2016 on the campaign trail, he said the American people, what affects you most is what? The economy. I will win you over by the economy, right? Which is your what? Pocketbooks, your paychecks. And when someone is consistent with that and they're not toying you around and ripping you around and doing all these other things and, oh, well, milk is $4 million per gallon, but gas is, 10 cents, where you're like, oh, well, at least I can drive wherever I want to go. But, I can't drink milk, so I'll drink something else. No, when everything is down where it's supposed to be and there's no loophole or catch somewhere where this is up and this is low and this is up and this is low, when there's none of that, like the deep state did to you, which is manipulation and gaslighting, well, this is high, but this is low. Well, you may not need this over here that's high, but someone else does, right? But if it don't affect you, then you're like, oh, well, this is great. This is what I want. That ain't how America works. We the people, it's supposed to work for everybody. And when the president goes to the White House doors, like the Merle Haggard song, and does what he says he'll do, well, President Trump did that. For the first time, everything's going to be low. They're going to bring it down. Vehicle prices are already dropping. Housing's already dropping in certain places. It's all dropping. It's all coming back down. They're bringing it down. They had to do it slow, though, because here's what happens. If a president walked in, yeah, by theory, because everything's man-made system, he could walk in and just boom, boom, boom. But then what happens? If you just go in and do everything at once, then people go, well, if the president can do that all the time, why do we even have it then? Well, we have a system in place for a reason. Checks and balances. That's why the monetary system always moves around. It moves because you put money here and you pay money here and then you get it back. You pay it here, you get it back. It's a cycle, right? But if the president walked in and just ripped the rug out, said, put this down, you the people wouldn't appreciate it, and you would expect that all times, and then we would not have a functioning and operating country because you would expect the president to just go in and fix it all the time. And it don't work like that. So they had to do it this way, and it was perfect. They used a puppet government. It's freaking epic and perfect. So they used a puppet government. By the way, I lost my live access on TikTok, which means I'm what? Right over the target. They also removed me on Instagram. Right over the target. Remove my live. Right over the target. That right there should already have me. I'm at 163 shares. That should have 700 shares with 154,000 followers. This thing. But look. I'm the only one that knows what the hell's going on. From top to bottom. All in one sitting. And people want to wallow in drama and propaganda. So Reconstitution, January the 1st. This publication was put out January the 1st. Reconstitution of the executive branch. And then you witness what you witnessed from 2021 to 2025. I mean, it is so right there in front of you. But, you know, whether they ever just show it word for word, detail for detail, you know, it's still all there. It's still all there. And whatever they choose to validate on this high level, that's what I was going to say earlier. That's it. Lieutenant Colonel Bosey. There it is. Lieutenant Colonel Bosey was saying even some of the president's right-hand men don't even know what's going on. Some do. A lot do. But it's the quote that God the Father, if you're a Christian out there, all right, even some of the angels don't even know what God's going to do. All right? And so many people out there, you're not a believer because President Trump hasn't validated me verbally or held my book up or shared my book or something like that. Therefore, you don't do what? You don't go read it. You don't go study. Because someone up here with a bigger blue check and a bigger name that was around long before 2017 doesn't talk about it. Has nothing to do with anything. The only thing I do talk about are President Donald John Trump's actions in the dash, 45-47, the laws and the orders, but the laws that were established before 2017. Every single thing that President Trump's working with, the law was already there before him. The law was there. The order wasn't. The law was. So everything I talk about are all of the laws and the orders of President Donald John Trump's face, name, brand, image, his likeness, what he put on, which makes up the 45-47, that shows you the outline of this strategic special operation. The 45-47, which he wears on his ball cap. He wears that. He put that there after I signed the contract to write these books. All right, these books are the only books in publication. All right, they're the only ones that talk about 45-40. I'm the only one who outlines it in the great details. And when I came onto the scene, I made every other podcaster in the independent world out there have to step their game up because they weren't talking about this. None of them. None of them knew about the continuity of government. No one talked about the continuity of government, continuity of operations, military occupation, the funeral service. If it was, I wouldn't be here because someone else would have had this platform. That's why it's important, though, is because I'm not speaking on my behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of every veteran that don't want a name and a face. All right? I'm speaking on behalf of all the memorial graves across this land. All right? I'm speaking on behalf of that and carrying their legacy forward. My grandfather, who's been gone 20 years, Army veteran. I'm speaking for my great-grandfather, Army Air Corps, World War I. All right? I'm speaking on behalf of my uncle and my dad. All right, and all my great uncles, and the ones that are here and the ones that are not here. I'm speaking on somebody has to. Somebody has to show you the way. Someone has to show you and know what's going on lawfully. Not drama, not propaganda, not things that ruffle you. And you don't need that in your life. You don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need all this drama and propaganda, these pages who are nothing but algorithms, post. I mean, I bet they put 100, 200 posts up a day. That's not good for you. And it ain't even good posts. It's just drama. And that's just one person. And you're following all these people. When the outline's clear, you really love President Trump, you really love the military, then you want to appreciate and respect them, study what we go by, what we live by. And when you do that, you're going to eliminate the feelings and emotions you have. You're going to really actually feel burdens lifted, stress, anxiety, because it ain't stress and anxiety. Why do you have stress and anxiety? It's something you don't even operate in or with. You don't even need that in your life because it don't even apply to you. I'm not stressed. I don't have anxiety. Why do you? Why do you have fear? There's no fear here. That's why I show that passion. That's why I raise my voice sometimes. I'm not angry, mad. I'm passionate, trying to make you feel that feeling, that passion. You can feel that feeling if you'll trust and support the man that you claim to love and support. But you can't love and support him without knowing what he's working with. Laws and orders. It sounds cliche, yep. But it is a slogan. Know what the laws are. Know what those orders are. Know what's being carried out. Then you'll have peace, calmness, contentment, joy. You won't even be happy. Happy is a word that fluctuates. It depends on what makes you happy. Some people just can't be happy. But you can find contentment and joy. Right? You may not ever have a Corvette that you wanted, but you may have a Chevy that you like and love. And you know what? I ain't got a Corvette, but I got a this. And I love it just as much as I think I love that. That's called joy and contentment. All right? There may be some things in life you just never get. You may never get to go to Hawaii or wherever it is you want to go to. But you may get on Google and just sit there and look at all the pictures in the world and be like, you know what? I ain't got to get on a plane and go look at that place. I can look at it right here all I want, and I can sit right here in Podunk, Mississippi, and just be just as happy as a cucumber on a salad. All right? This is, what makes your joy and contentment? Well, I'm here to show you that you shouldn't be mad, ruffled, weathered, whatever it is, feathers in a ruffle, whatever it could be, over something that you're not even a part of. You're just watching. You're just watching this take place. They got you. We got you. So it's all an operation. It's good. There's nothing wrong. It's all strategic. Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff, all of them. So if you want to be the run-of-the-mill, you can still have it because it's there. The run-of-the-mill. The distraction pieces. If you still want the distractions, go on. But if you don't, and you're ready to be an adult now, you're ready to know how to pull your part now, play your part, pull your part, laws and orders. And here they are. It's a unique strategic set of laws and orders for this right now. When it's all said and done, there will be revocations of these executive orders. There will be revocations of all these. There will be revocations. President Trump, that's why he brags about, and he has the right to, the 8 wars in 8 months. They were all from the deep state that they were keeping going. That 1973, Congress putting constraints on the president, which should have never happened. 1951, Congress putting term limits on the president when nowhere in our foundation, nowhere in our Constitution does it say to do that. That's why you're hearing the terms ratification. That's why you're hearing the terms of President Trump being 2028. The third term's already happened. That's happening right now. You heard President Trump say it to the generals and admirals, I'm 45, 46, and 47. I don't want the results of 46, but I'll take it. All right? That is your government in exile that the Turkish president conversation a month ago, exile. That is your puppet government. Their tactics. They're in our unconventional warfare pocket guide. Government in exile, shadow government. All right? You got to know these things, or you should want to know these things. You ain't got to necessarily, because a lot of these are military, but you should want to because they are all lawful. So that's why all the tariffs and all that. I mean, there's another thing right there as I close. I sound like a preacher. As I close, get ready. Musicians, get ready. You know. But as I close, tariffs. President Trump talking about the tariffs, the Supreme Court, the tariffs. Well, if tariffs were against the law, or the president can't do that, then why? Hold on. Why did not one single judge, Obama, Clinton, or Bush-appointed judge, try to block one tariff from 2021 to 2025? Why? Why didn't they try to block it? It was displayed to you, the people, from 2021 to 2023 that there was a Democrat president, quote-unquote Joe, Democrat president, Democrat-controlled House, Democrat-controlled Senate. From 2021 to 2023, they could not terminate one single tariff that was put into place in 2018. Did you not listen to President Trump in the quote-unquote debate? Did you not notice they didn't take out my tariffs? Because they can't. Why can't they? If a president is a president, if Joe Biden was president, he'd have the same authority and power as every other president. Why couldn't he terminate the tariffs? Then President Trump in the debate, right after, he said that because he can't, he said because it brings in too much money. That has nothing to do with power and authority. That has nothing to do with power and authority. That's where you but some people out there let your emotions get in the way. That has nothing to do with the power and authority. Nothing to do with that. If Joe Biden was president, he can terminate the tariffs, whether it was good or bad. It doesn't matter. What matters is the power and the authority. And once you let your mind feed on that a little while and apply the power and authority part, then it's going to click that this is an operation, an occupation, and continental government. Because the law will show it is. But that aspect helps you. And then you're going to divorce your emotions and divorce your feelings, and you're going to divorce all this drama and propaganda. And you shouldn't want to go over to all these other pages. You shouldn't want to. Because they're nothing but drama and propaganda. If they're not talking about the laws and the orders by the president himself, the executive orders by the president, they're not talking any of those things. And then they ain't talked about them all these years, and guess what? They never knew about them in the first place. So why would you want to even support someone who didn't even know about them all this time? Look at all the platforms who have not talked about one single thing that President Trump has done lawfully with laws and orders, government and or military. So if they start today, kudos to them, but guess what? They never knew. Why would you want someone like that leading you? Why would you want someone like that talking to you? Why would you want to support someone who didn't know the whole time? So the whole time they 99.9% of these pages have been misleading people with drama and propaganda. They could have been teaching them the laws and the orders of the president. You know why they can't teach them that? Because they don't know it. They don't know the simple functions of the three branches of government. So can they truly be for the people? Truly being for the people isn't drama and propaganda, I can tell you that. Truly being for the people is going, all right, you can yell at me, hate me, cuss me, ridicule, mock me, slander me, defame me, and all that, but guess what? I have a foundation. My foundation shows exactly what that dash was put on that ball cap for. My foundation outlines everything daily, weekly, monthly that you can put your eyes and ears on if you'll just divorce your emotions and your feelings. I show you every action daily that outlines that, yeah, there are things happening. You just can't see it because you don't know the verbiage and the language and the context. You don't know that. But you can, if you'll listen to that, learn that, put that as your foundation, you'll start seeing everything daily, monthly, weekly. And then you won't ever say nothing's happening. You'll be saying, dang, this. It's everywhere. But you don't know it because you don't know the language. You got to know the language just like you know whatever it is you know out there. A lot of you know music. You know every lyric to every song. How do I know what I know? Because I love it. And I'm passionate about it. Therefore, you can know it if you are passionate about it. I mean, so the tariffs are an answer. It's an emergency power, one. It's also just a regular power. It depends on how it's being used. All right, so there's an emergency power that you need to regulate commerce. There's that. That's one of those 120 statutory powers that every national emergency unlocks. So there's one portion. Then there's the presidential, there's the trade acts of 62 and 74, which are presidential authority. So there's an authority again. So if Joe was president, he'd have the same authority and power as every other president. How come he couldn't terminate a tariff? Especially from 2021 to 2023. How come not one single Title 10, Title 32 order, executive order by President Trump, 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies, how come all these things were not terminated with a Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate? How? Tariffs. The tariffs were put into place 2018. They made it through 2021 to 2025. Democrat House, Democrat Senate, Democrat President to the average people. Then Obama, Clinton, Bush appointed judges. Not one single judge blocked one single tariff. But all of a sudden tariffs are a problem in 2025. All of a sudden tariffs make President Trump a king, a dictator, a Nazi, a threat. All of a sudden. Come on, people. It is that simple. Redistricting, reconstitution. They all tie in because of laws and orders. Executive Order 13848, which is still open and active to this day. It just got continued 2 months ago in September for another year, which means we're still under that. The invocation of continuity of government, all right? Executive Order 13961, quote-unquote Joe, partially terminated, revoked, Executive Order 13961 with Executive Order 14146 on January the 19th, 2025. Why would quote-unquote Joe wait to the last 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity of government? Do you know what reconstitution means? It means it's a full. It means that after a full continuity of government, then there becomes a reconstitution. If there's a partial revocation of a continuity of government, that means the continuity of government is done and the reconstitution is also done. When was the reconstitution publication put out again? January the 1st, 2021. What was displayed to the world January the 20th, 2021? What took place from 2021 to 2025? And President Trump just posted this past week, the best is yet to come still. So we're not there yet. The laws and orders show that. So that means that you have to do what? You have to hang on. Patriots are hanging on because they know what's going on. But in order for you to hang on, Republican, conservative, in order for you to hang on, you probably need to know what's going on, right? And the man you claim you love and support, you might just find out you love and support him even more because he's the face, name, brand, image of a special strategic military operation called a military occupation on our nation which is national defense, which is Title 50, war and national defense. It's all lawful. Nothing what the liberals scream. They don't matter anyway, because there's a little bit of them. They sound bigger because they bark louder, but they're not. All right, they're little bitty, and they'll get over it anyway. All right, so that's all you need to know, really. But study Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency, and then study Reconstitution, and look at the timeline of those as well. Everything was after that December the 20th, 2019 entry via the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 with a temporary recording in the War Powers Resolution Act. Temporary meaning this is strategic. And then look at the timing of everything after that. It matters. It most definitely matters. What's great about it is Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency was before the entry. So why would quote-unquote Joe continue an executive order that would damn his whole administration? That would damn everything. See, you don't need the auto-pen conversation if you knew the laws and the orders. The auto-pen conversation is for the people who still need to be distracted. They're still the ones who don't know anything about laws, anything about orders, just on the simple. So therefore, if you claim to be a patriot, you shouldn't be reacting to all this distraction stuff. You should be knowing that, hey, the auto-pen is part of the distraction, because the auto-pen is exactly the 45-47. It's a strategic special operation, and the laws and the orders show that, and they're unique laws and orders that apply to the 45-47, that outline the 45-47, all right, that are unique laws and orders. They're not used all the time, and we don't want them used all the time because they're strategic. They're unique for a reason. So I highly suggest reading and reading and rereading and reading and rereading and studying and studying and studying, because you still need to know these things. We, the people, are the people. We're the government. All right, so these bad boys right here, they're still selling. They're still number one bestsellers. This is a little one. This one gets your feet wet. Part 2, actually what's crazy about Part 2 is it's all special operations based. It's bigger, obviously. It's irregular warfare, special operations. But you've seen someone capitulate recently. You saw Bill Gates. I saw a lot of people comment about Bill Gates. Oh, why would Bill Gates be up there? It's a capitulation. All right, you get all the people who have big names and faces. They're part of the funnel. There's the white flag of surrender. Bill Gates, that was a white flag. That was a surrender. All right, here you go. What's in this book? Bill Gates. I put Bill Gates all in here. I put Bill Gates on there. Why, if you were for people, you wouldn't create a vaccine. You would go in and purify waters in third world countries. You wouldn't go in and create a vaccine. That is what we talk about in the patriot world. We're talking about the cure versus are you treating the problem or the symptom? Well, we know what doctors do out there. They're not trying to cure the problem. They're treating the symptom, right? Well, that's what Bill Gates and them were doing. They were going in these third world countries, right, where they were poverty and malnourished, and the water was just full of debris and nasty. I mean, you wouldn't even take a bath in that, right? They weren't fixing that. They were going in there creating vaccines. That's definitely treating the symptom, not curing the problem, right? So, but he's a capitulation. And it's perfect, because there goes a liberal's hero again. One of the key liberal heroes fell, right? And they're falling like flies left and right. And it goes back to what I say all the time. They're not going to have any heroes left. So you, the patriots, need to quit trying to so much ridicule and just damn someone to hell when you don't really know what's going on back here. All right? Let everything play out. If President Trump shows you how bad and evil they are, and then they get a quick trial or whatever else, there's no punishment, it'll play out. Let it get there. But until then, they might be someone that could have been playing a special operations role. And that's why I tell people, you don't really truly appreciate special operations, because you don't really know about it. So therefore, you shouldn't be talking about it till you know about it. Irregular warfare, unconventional warfare. Till you really know about it, study it, consume it, and know it like the back of your eyelids. But that's also why you shouldn't be ruffled, upset, bitter, angry, fearful, scared, anything, because when you know what's going on, That's why I get so frustrated for you and mad for you. It's because all these people out here spreading all these things, that's the spiritual warfare. That's the informational warfare. That's the real stuff. We're trying to say, quit listening to this. Quit listening to these people. You don't need that. This is all you need. This is all you need. All you need is a foundation. All you need is that. All you need what that is. Don't listen to all this stuff. Stop listening to all this. That's what it looks like. This. And it's designed to make you do this. I'm designed to go grab those for you and hold them off and push them back for you, right? And go, hey, get over here. Like an eagle or a mother bird in a storm, their feathers protect their little ones, right? That's what it's like. It's like going, hey, stop listening to these people. And then me trying to knock them out, right? Knock them upside the head, especially if they claim to be Republican conservative. Like, why are you doing this? All you're doing is exactly what you claim liberals are doing, or journalists who are not good. You're doing the polar opposite just because you don't know laws and orders either. You don't know military tactics, military strategies. You don't know that. Because anyone who says Dear Johnson's full of that, or I'm a liar and all these things, they're definitely trying to deceive you somehow, some way. Because all I talk about are the laws and orders that outline 45-47, that outline how the military operation functions. They're really trying to deceive you. And some have tried that out there. And those are the ones that you really got to be careful of. Because if they're saying someone's lying, telling a law and order is not a lie. You can be wrong, sure, but it don't mean you're a liar. That's why you got to be careful out there. So this week's going to be fun. We're moving into November. We're getting close to December. I mean, before you know it, the new year will be here. I mean, y'all know how quick time's flying right now. I mean, think about it. A year ago this time last year, you were all happy because President Trump was elected. And look at how those feelings changed from Election Day to January the 20th to now. That's that word happiness that fluctuates. You don't have joy and contentment. A lot of people don't because you don't have a foundation. And when you get the foundation built, when you have a solid foundation, when you have a foundation with structure, protocol, etiquette, and integrity, but discernment. Discernment's going to come once you build this foundation over here. But you can't have discernment until you have the right foundation set up. You're not going to have discernment until you have that foundation. Discernment is a product of all this over here being set up on the right foundation. That's why a lot of people are wishy-washy right now, because your foundation is not solid still. And that's what a guy like me is doing. I'm trying to build your foundation. And once you have a solid foundation and discernment, then you'll be able to look at things that maybe you're like, I don't know what this is. I'll look at it. Like when people write to me and say, can you look at this and tell me what you think? There may be something out there floating. Then I go, oh, well, that's this. It don't change my foundation. If something changes your foundation, you don't have a foundation. If something shifts you or shakes you, you don't, especially if it's a minuscule thing or a minor thing, if it shakes you or persuades you or coerces you, you don't have a foundation. All right. I can hear all kinds of opinions and feelings out there, but it won't shape my foundation. All right. It could be uneasy. It may not feel good to hear something out there, but it don't shape my foundation. Right? So that's what you need is a foundation. This is your visual of the foundation. That says, hey, there's a foundation there. There's a strategic plan in place. You can know it. All right, so this week should be fun. It should be a good week. President Trump's not really posting a whole lot of stuff. He's not really been the only thing he's been very, very active on True Social is just putting up about nominations and congratulations to certain people and praising all of his nominations and people who are doing good jobs that have been nominated by him, endorsed by him in the past. So there's not a lot of new stuff going on. which means we're rolling. I mean, you've been seeing all the things with Pam Bondi and all the different things about Obama, and Obama's really being active. He's really heavy active right now on social media, Obama and Hillary. So they're building the narrative back up. They're building it back up. All your paid opposition, libtards, the paid opposition, though, which means it's paid opposition on purpose to stir them up on the social media, they're really hitting that hard. They're hitting Epstein again hard, and they're hitting the Obama, as a gentleman, and Joe Biden was a gentleman, and all. They're really playing these people up, all right? And President Trumpson told you, all roads lead to Obama. So everything's being set up. Everything's being set up because we're rolling into the golden age. We're rolling into July the 4th, 2026. So a lot of things have still yet to happen. The best is yet to come. So the best is yet to come means the best is not here yet. So it means to hang on a little longer. Day by day, have a foundation, trust the commander. The only way you can trust the commander is to trust the plan by the commander. And if you don't have a solid foundation on that plan, you can't trust the commander. So therefore, you got to do what? Know the commander's plan. President Donald John Trump is the face, but he's the supreme commander. So that means you got to know what? The plan. Well, what is the plan? The 45-47. That is the plan. So you got to know that. And that is only taught by me heavily. In one sitting, one location, and in these books, all right? But all my platforms. So be sure you're following the correct platforms. Make sure you tell your friends and your family out there, say, hey, there's a lot of fakes. Be careful, all right? Because I don't talk about QFS, and I don't talk about all these other things. All right, so there's that, all right? I don't talk about that stuff. All I talk about are the laws and orders by President Donald John Trump, all right? If you want the book signed by me, I sign everything that comes through me. So it's Rattletrap, RATTLETRAP, 1776.com. All right. And then if you're international, then Amazon. If you want it quicker, Amazon. If you want it for a birthday, if it's like in the next day or 2 or 3 days or whatever, Amazon. All right. Amazon's been cleaned out. President Trump, Bezos, all that, capitulation, Executive Order 13959 with the National Emergency way back 2020, all this took place. So Amazon's been cleaned out. Now you don't have to like them still, that's fine. You have a preference, whatever. But Amazon's cool. He has a Trump store up on there. President Trump says Trump, whatever, I can't remember the name up now, but he has a store on there that he announced on Amazon. So Amazon's been cleaned out. Amazon's okay. All right, so you're not supporting some deep state operation when you buy off of Amazon. All right, so there's that. So you get on Amazon if you want it quick. But if you want it through me, then it goes through my website. Everything goes through my website if you want it signed by me. But the Midnight Rider Bible is out. Everybody's selling like hotcakes. It's got everything. Article 1, 2, 3, Gettysburg Address, Treaty of Paris, Treaty of Ghent. The Federalist Papers, Common Sense, Thomas Paine. It's got everything in it. Every bit of our founding documents, everything, the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, everything. The war articles, I put all the war articles in there. In one book, one sitting, one setting, no pictures, all text, in one book. Never before are all these put in one book. All right? And it's a key foundation. It's a key thing to help people get a foundation. Set your feet on this. This is what our founders established. Here's their ideologies. Here's their beliefs. Here's what they were thinking back then, their mindset. Here it is, all in one location, and it works its way forward to Title 10, Title 32, the difference in those, Title 50, the difference in Title 10 and Title 50. It breaks all those down. So there you go. All right. So, we'll see you guys soon. Appreciate the love and the support. I do read all the messages. We do get the messages. It takes a while. We do have a lot. So remember, don't feel like you're being ignored. We get a lot of messages. We try to get to them as fast as we can. But my suggestion is, if you want me to see something, then message religiously, because if you're at the top of the pile, then it's always at the top of the pile. So that's how that works. Sometimes you'll fall down here. So that's how that works in the message box. But we do see them. I do get emails as well. So I appreciate the love and the support. This is so much fun for me to do this every Sunday, and then also the podcast I do weekly. I love this. I love what God called me to do and what what was put and tasked to me to do. This is so much fun for me. So check the post. I'll be putting some more posts up today. I got another one I'm about to roll out, so it's going to be awesome. So we'll see you guys soon.